Hey everybody, AstroMommy here. So in the last video, we went over the election day astrology. And in this video, we're going to go over Donald Trump's astrology for election day, what's showing up in his solar return and his progressions, his annual profections. We're going to kind of take a look at all of that. I'm going to try to keep this video short and sweet and to the point. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to minimize my screen here, and we're going to take a look first at former President Donald Trump's chart. Now, what I have learned about astrology and whether or not somebody could become the president of the United States or whatnot is that it first has to show up in the natal chart. So what I want to show for you guys here is how does it show up in Donald Trump's natal chart that he could become the president of the United States? What is that? What planetary combination do we see that kind of grants him that? Okay, so because there's a lot of videos out about Donald Trump's chart analysis and whatnot. And so I just kind of want to get right to the point here. So in his natal chart, the natal promise that we see that shows that he could become the president of the United States is that he has his sun in a benefic trine with his natal Jupiter here. Okay? That is going to show success and promotion in his life. It's going to give him a certain confidence and charisma and also give him some, leadership qualities. But it is an aspect within a natal chart when you see a trine between the sun and Jupiter of expanding the person's success and ambitions, blessing the life in some way with some sort of abundance and prosperity. We certainly see that in Donald Trump's life. Additionally, one other thing that I'd like to point out that I find is interesting, we do have Pluto in his first house. Now, I look at the houses using the whole sign house system. If you use a different house system, then just make note of that. When I say it's in the first house, I'm referring to the whole sign house system. Pluto in the first house can show that a person can have a very transformative life and could be really influential to their generation. Pluto is a generational planet because it moves so slowly through the zodiac. So to have Pluto in an angular house could mean that your life could be powerful for your generation. So I think that that's really interesting. We do see Pluto in angular houses with other, important political figures as well as celebrities and whatnot. So I think that that is fascinating. So right there, those are the things that there's lots of things in Donald Trump's chart, but those two things I think show a great deal of success and power within his life. Now, what we want to see in terms of the election day transits and in terms of his progressions and his solar returns is we want to see this trine being activated because that will mean that that year will be successful. It will expand his power, his reach, and his success and his abundance and his leadership, right? That'll expand that year. And Jupiter will be able to bestow his blessings on him. So I did analyze his previous solar returns for 2016 and 2020. 2016, he won the election, and 2020, he lost. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting, and I'm not going to share the chart here, I'm just going to briefly tell you guys, is that in his 2016 chart, the transits to his natal chart, as well as the solar return, was activating this trine between his sun and Jupiter. In 2020, that trine was not being activated in that same way and was being blocked by other transits. So if you'd like an analysis video where we're discussing those different solar returns and those different transiting planets to his natal chart, we can do another video for that. But for this video, I just want to focus on the 2024 charts. Okay, so the next thing we're going to take a look at is his solar return for 2024. Okay, so the ascendant for the solar return is 14 degrees Cancer. That puts the ascendant in Donald Trump's 12th house of his natal chart. So that's going to be a focus on 12th house matters. Now, 12th house has to do with our self-undoing, has to do with confinement, also has to do with imprisonment and anything where we feel restricted. It's also that between liminal space where things are gestating in the unconscious or subconscious areas of our life, and then they emerge when they come back out into the first house. So there is an emphasis on 12th house themes. That's kind of like a dark night of the soul type of a year that's coming up. So that's the first hit that I see against Donald Trump winning. That correlates with the horary chart that I did with the prediction that Kamala Harris would win. If you haven't seen that video, that's the first in this series. I'll make a link for it here. Anyway, okay, so in his solar return, the ascendant's in the 12th house. That's not so great. That puts his sun and all of that stuff in Gemini in the 12th house of the solar return chart. So let's take a look at the two charts together, the solar return and his natal chart, so that I can talk about some of the dynamics going on here. So here we have on the inside, we have Donald Trump's natal chart, and on the outside, we have his solar return for 2024. You can't see it, but the ascendant is here. Let me write it on. The ascendant for his solar return chart is in Cancer, as you can see. Now that is the 12th house of his natal chart, so that represents a focus on those 12th house themes, as I said. All right, so a couple of things going on. We have Uranus conjoined the midheaven of his natal chart. That's going to show instability, uncertainty in his career life, and also lots of flying factors, things coming in and disrupting what's going on in his career life. Now, arguably, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. So, but this is a disruption, and that could have also shown, one of the reasons why he lost in 2020 was Uranus being in his career house, the 10th house of career. Additionally, Uranus is in a square to his ascendant degree and Mars. Now he's got Mars conjoined his ascendant, which shows a very fiery, passionate, dramatic personality, as well as kind of an aggressive, obnoxious personality, which we all know and some of you love. And I'm not, going to say anything more about that. But anyway, so Uranus square the ascendant is going to show lots of disruptive things that kind of try to attack him. Now, we already saw that he has had several, attempts on his life, the one shot to his ear, as well as the attempted assassination on the golf course, so in his solar return, I think that one of the things that shows that is that we have Mars in his 10th house, showing that there's an aggressive force that is trying to take him down in some way. Mars is a malefic planet, represents threats and aggression and dangers. So there is a danger, and it's in the public view. It's in the 10th house. There's a danger to his career this year. Okay, now, we do have the benefic Jupiter in his 11th house of hopes and wishes, and that is bringing prosperity, and that could be signifying that there is abundance and prosperity and good fortune that is coming to him. So that is nice. Jupiter is activating that trine that I talked about in his natal chart from the sun to his natal Jupiter here, okay? So Jupiter going through Gemini is activating that trine, and that is really, really good. Now, that alone does give me pause and make me doubt the horary, because I'm like, okay, well, Jupiter is blessing his life. But we do have a couple of things that could show that maybe it's not going to be so much of a blessing. Jupiter is in its detriment, which means it's a weakened Jupiter. Is that going to be enough to show a loss? I don't know. But the thing that I do think could possibly show a loss is what Saturn is doing. So Saturn in his solar return is right here at 19 degrees Pisces, and that is forming a square to his natal sun and North Node and Uranus all in Gemini. Now, Saturn represents limitations, hard stops, reality check moments. Saturn is also authority figures and the law as well, the enforcers of the law. Jupiter represents like the study and the knowledge of the law, and Saturn represents like the local law enforcement, enforcing the law. The Grim Reaper coming down with his enforcement of karmic law, right? Saturn represents karma. So I'm not sure, especially since Saturn is not only squaring his sun, but also squaring his moon. So Saturn is squaring the lights this year in the solar return. I'm not sure if that's going to permit the win that Jupiter would bestow if Saturn wasn't there. I think if Saturn wasn't there squaring the lights and Saturn was supporting, doing a supportive aspect to the lights, like a sextile or a trine, that would represent a win for Donald Trump. But because Saturn is not supporting the sun and the moon here in the solar return, that represents getting blocked, being defeated in some way. Okay. So those are the main things that I see happening in the solar return that show the former President Trump not winning this election. Additionally, my teacher Adam Ellenboss, in his analysis of the 2020 election, talked about the lot of victory as well as the lot of dismissal and resignation. And I'm not going to go into the lots and how to configure them, how you figure those out, but I do want to share with you those two lots. And let me get my notes here so I can tell you where they are for Donald Trump. Okay, so Donald Trump's lot of victory is 15 degrees Aries, 43 minutes. So if we just put a little mark here, that would be, right around here, okay? Now, when he won in 2016, Saturn was making a trine from Sagittarius to that lot of victory, but nothing is activating it this year, all right? Now, additionally, his lot of dismissal and resignation, which happens to be at 18 degrees of Scorpio, is located here, be somewhere around in the middle of Scorpio. Now, we will see on election day that that particular lot is going to be activated for Donald Trump. Now, I had the thought, if election day is always in the beginning of November, wouldn't that lot always be activated? And it was activated in 2020, and he did not win. It was not activated in 2016 in the same way. It was activated like on election day and the day after it was activated, but then the lot of victory was activated more strongly. And like I said, I could put that up in a chart and we could look at those if you want to or whatever. But anyway, basically, this year, the lot of victory is not being activated at all. So let's go ahead and take a look at his chart with the election day chart and keep those lots in mind as well. All right, so briefly, here is election day. Let's go ahead and orient ourselves. Election day, we have our ascendant here at 22 degrees Cancer. That is when I cast a chart for 9:27 p.m. on November 5th, when the moon is squaring the nodes, because I feel like that is a very potent time during the day when the moon is squaring the nodes from the southern bending in Capricorn. Okay, now let's look at the bi-wheel of these two charts. Okay, so on the inside we have Trump's chart, natal chart on the inside, and on the outside we have the transits for election day. All right, now those lots that I talked about. First, we have the lot of victory at 15 Aries, and then we have the lot of dismissal and resignation here at 18 Scorpio. Now, the sun on election day is at 14 degrees Scorpio, 10 minutes. That means that within 4 days, the sun is going to be highlighting that lot of dismissal and resignation. That's not so great. There is there is no planet besides Mercury that's going to be making any positive aspect to the lot of victory, and that Mercury is not going to be hitting that for a couple of weeks. So I'm not sure that that is, enough. Plus these are the lots, and they're not, you need other corroborating factors, other testimonies in the chart for the lots to make sense. All right, let's go ahead and take that off. So looking at the chart of the actual election day. Now, we do have this, beautiful thing happening with Jupiter and Trump's sun and the North Node and Uranus. Jupiter is conjoining that. Although Jupiter is retrograde, not good, and Jupiter is in its detriment, also not good. But it is activating that trine that I talked about from the sun to his natal Jupiter. Now, that alone, if there wasn't something blocking that, I would say this is a really good sign for a win. And I do see that this could represent that, he gets a lot of votes. Like I said in the horary, I think that this is going to be a neck and neck election. So this could represent that he gets a lot of votes for him, right? But we do have this Saturn. Now, Saturn is retrograde and it's at 12 degrees. It's almost to its station point. It goes back to 12 degrees Pisces, 41 minutes, and then it's going to turn direct. So it's in a wide square to the sun and the moon. But once it turns direct and starts going direct, it's going to go up to 19 degrees, go retrograde again, and then station direct, and then finish out in Pisces. And I believe that it does another, I believe it enters Aries before it goes retrograde again. But anyway, we'd have to double check that. But anyway, my point is that Saturn is going to be, cracking down and squaring his lights. That is not, in my mind, that is not a victorious transit. That represents being blocked by some sort of authority figure, karmic law, rules, regulations and limitations, and being blocked by something. So I don't see a win when it, thinking about that and the Horary chart and how the Horary chart went to Kamala Harris, I don't see a win. I don't see Saturn allowing a win for the former president, Donald Trump. Now, additionally, I want to briefly talk about his progressions and his perfection year. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take this off. All right, so Donald Trump's annual perfection year, he's 78 years old. He just turned 78 on his birthday, which means that he's in a 7th house perfection year. Now, his 7th house is ruled by Saturn, and that means that aspects to his natal Saturn, as well as any aspects from transiting Saturn, are going to be of great importance. So we have that transiting Saturn making squares to his lights. That's not so good. Additionally, we also have Pluto, which is over here at 29 degrees Capricorn, making oppositions to his, it's been making oppositions to his Saturn and his Venus, so none of that is fun. But Saturn is located in his 12th house of self-undoing, confinement, hidden enemies, all of that kind of stuff. And so it definitely represents, a year where he's going to be looking deeply at all of those things and dealing with possible, more litigation and everything, and having to fight for that. Now, having to, defend himself against those types of things, so laws, rules, authority figures, whatnot, all those things that Saturn represents. Now, his Saturn is in a nice position. One, it's in the 12th house, so it's sort of hidden from view. And also, it has a close conjunction with Venus. And also, Jupiter is casting a benefic ray on the other side of Saturn. So this is known in traditional astrology as a benefic enclosure. So his Saturn is protected. My teacher called him Teflon Don. I'd never heard that expression before, but I think that it means that, he gets out of things a lot, right? But I don't think that he's going to get out of things this time because of Saturn squaring the lights for him. Now, let's take a look quickly at his progressions. His secondary progressions for November 5th, 2024. So this is a technique that is used a lot in modern astrology, and it represents a day for a year. So this is where the planets were after his birth, 78 days after his birth. This is where the planets had progressed to, okay? So the main things that we want to look at here is, what are the actual aspects that are going on? We've got the ascendant in Scorpio. That's his natal 4th house. That's going to show an emphasis on his home and family and roots, as well as the moon is also in Scorpio. Scorpio is the fall of the moon, so that means his circumstances could be going through a big fall and a, kind of a flip in circumstances. And that's not good. That means that over the next 2 to 2.5 years, he's going to be dealing with, a lot of things that are really uncomfortable and a lot of circumstances that feel very foreign to him, and that he doesn't like. And it's going to have to do with his self, his health, his body, his foundations, his roots, his ancestry, his family, his landed property, all of those things that represent, that the 1st house, since this is the moon conjoined the ascendant of the progress chart, represents, as well as the 4th house, since this falls in his 4th natal house. And we do have his progressed Venus and Jupiter in a conjunction, but in his 12th house. So that could be an emphasis on things that are going on, maybe, behind the scenes. That could be recovery or, having some sort of resolution happen, with the legal things that are going on, as well as, overcoming a lot of this stuff that is happening in his life. Um, and the moon is also making a square to his progressed midheaven, which has Saturn and Pluto flanking it. So this is a really transformative time for him where he's, you know, it could very well be that, if he wins this election, then obviously he's going to be doing that. But it could be like the last thing that he does, before he retires, and if he doesn't win, then he could just be like, okay, this is, you know, I'm not going to be doing this. So he's going to be, focusing on home and family and really trying to rebuild those relationships, and nurture those relationships with the moon there in Scorpio. This is really nurturing home and family and nurturing of the self. So that's what I see in his progressed chart. All right, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this deep dive into Trump's astrology with the election, his progressions, and perfection year, and all that kind of stuff. And you've gleaned some information that might be helpful for you. In the next video, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be going over Kamala Harris's chart, her natal chart, her progressed chart, her perfection year, as well as her solar return this year, and the transits for election day to her natal chart and whatnot. All right, so thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Once it is made, I will put a link to it here so you can check that out.